The newsday continues here on One News Now. I'm Riza Diaz. A Washington-based think tank is urging the Philippine government to raise issues in the West Philippine Sea to the international community. Asia Maritime Transparency Institute's Greg Polling tells One News, the chief, that the Philippines should exhaust all options to grab international attention on Chinese incursions. Polling notes that the Philippine military, the National Task Force for the West Philippine Sea, and the DFA have all made great progress in calling attention to the matter. But Polling says the dispute should also be brought up not just in ASEAN, but in every international forum where Filipino diplomats have a major voice.
I think if there was a vote in the UN General Assembly, the Philippines would win by a huge margin. And yes, China would then veto it in the Security Council, but that comes with cost, diplomatic cost, because then China has to be seen as losing these votes over and over. For DND and the AFP, a big part of this is what they're doing now, publicly naming and shaming Chinese bad actors. Publicize. Don't try to hide what's been happening at Pagasa.
AMTI also believes that the Philippines must maintain its presence at the disputed waters despite being outnumbered by Chinese vessels. The think tank says that despite the Philippines' disadvantage, there's clear value in merely showing that the country is not afraid to defend and maintain access to its exclusive zone.
Yes, the Philippine Coast Guard has very few ships with the endurance to go operate that far from shore. But the fact that the Cabra went out twice in the last months and, buzzed around these much larger Chinese fishing vessels, larger than the Philippine Coast Guard, took pictures of their bow numbers, told them to go away. That sends a message that China has not already won, that nobody is accepting China's claims. And I do think that that is very important.
A House lawmaker wants Philippine natural resources to be included in the country's income accounts. Speaking to One News, the chiefs, Antique Representative Loren Legarda said House Bill 9189 aims to create an ecosystem and a natural accounting system to protect the country's natural resources. Legarda adds that the measure will include externalities which are not valued as capital in the national account system.
This bill seeks to include what was formerly considered, dati po tinatawag nila externalities. Hindi po vina-value as capital. Pero sa aking panukalang batas, ito po ay masasama sa national income accounts. Kasi yung conventional national income accounting system, sinusukat lang nga economic performance by determining the value of goods and services produced in a country.
Meanwhile, the government has unveiled the fourth priority list for its vaccination program, but the schedule for their inoculation has yet to be disclosed. Greg Gregorio with the details.
More sectors have been identified as part of the government's A4 priority list for vaccination. This comes after the IATF approved the recommendation of the National Economic Development Authority. These include workers in the commuter transport, groceries, markets, financial services, and food manufacturing. Also included are religious leaders, security personnel, and media workers, among others.
Tinignan nila ano yung bakit essential itong mga workers na to. That's the first. How they interact with clients, what would be the statistics based from the records ng mga nagkakasakit because they are directly interacting with people.
Some of those who belong in the A4 priority group welcome the government's announcement.
Kasi tulad sa akin, nagko-commute ako araw-araw, tapos umuwi ako sa pamilya ko, para peaceful na rin yung isip ko.
Siguro malaking bagay sa atin yung mga taga-media, lalo na dahil nasa
The Health Department notes that specific guidelines for the A4 inoculation is still pending.
Schedules for these, pati specific guidelines, aayusin pa ho natin ito. Ito pong binigay na listahan na ito kung paano natin gagawin at saka kung kailan po mangyayari.
Vaccine czar Carlito Galvez admits that the country has been greatly affected by the limited global supply of shots.
May possibility tayo na during the third quarter and fourth quarter, ma-equalize na yung global supply. because the other countries have been pressured to give their doses, extra doses to poor countries.
But the government assures the public that additional vaccine doses will arrive starting this month. These include over 3 million doses of Sinovac, 500,000 doses of Sputnik V, and some from Moderna. Under the COVAX facility, over 2 million jabs from Pfizer and 4 million from AstraZeneca are expected. The Food and Drug Administration has allowed the resumption of AstraZeneca vaccination among recipients below 60 years old. The DOH is expected to release additional guidelines before the arrival of the next shipment. The use of AstraZeneca shot for the younger population had been halted due to the reported blood clot incidents in Europe.
So kung i-compare siya doon sa benefit na makukuha ng population sa babakunahan to save them from COVID and death from COVID, talagang mas matimbang yung benefit over the risk.
The FDA and DOH have recorded nearly 26,000 cases of vaccine side effects in the country. Officials note that this is just a small fraction from over 1 million people who have been vaccinated. For News 5, Greg Gregorio, we are One News.
The Interior Department says local government units are not allowed to require cash aid beneficiaries to sign waivers, regardless of the number of family members. On 1PH sa Totoo Lang, DILG Undersecretary Martin Dino said the guidelines clearly provide that the beneficiaries are entitled to receive assistance in accordance to the number of members per household. This comes amid reports that some government officials in Bulacan compelled beneficiaries to sign waivers, supposedly stating that residents must have no complaints with the amount of cash aid handed out to them. Dino reiterated that all beneficiaries in the NCR Plus bubble are free to report such violations to their grievance committee.
Sana hindi totoo. Bawal yan. Napirmahin nila ng 1,000 lang. At saka malinaw ang utos. Kung pamilya yan, pagka halimbawang dalawa, mag-asawa lang, 2,000.
Pag pamilya.
Pagka tatlo, 3,000. Pagka apat, 4 or more, a maximum 2,000. Okay? Malinaw na malinaw tayo dyan at hindi nila pwedeng baguhin yan. At sabi ko nga sa inyo, may grievance committee.
The government has yet to roll out its national contact tracing app, Stay Safe, already more than a year into the pandemic. Now, what will happen to this existing contact tracing apps? Mobile journalist Jacob Lazaro gives us a front seat to the story.
This, for many, is what constitutes contact tracing in the Philippines. Small slips of paper with barely legible handwriting. It's supposed to be one of the major pillars in the fight against COVID-19. But the implementation of a unified network digital contact tracing system has been excruciatingly slow. Technically, the national government uses an app called Stay Safe.
So we can use our malls as a micro-reference to our contact tracing database system. I've roamed around here and so far I have not found a single store that is using the Stay Safe app.
In April 2020, the NTF signed a Memorandum of Agreement with Multisys Systems, adopting the app as the country's official contact tracing system. But the official rollout of Stay Safe only takes place sometime next month. Rather than wait, many local governments and private companies rush to develop their own contact tracing apps. For example, Quezon City has QC Pass, Taguig has Trace Taguig. Now, the national government wants to get everyone on the same app, or at least connected to a unified database.
All of this contact tracing app is useless kung hindi mo ma-analyze yung data na generate.
Contact tracer Jet Junio explains the idea is to identify a COVID patient's close contact, regardless of what town or city they live in, work in, or eat in.
Supposedly, dapat nagka-quarantine kayo sila eh. Possible po talaga, malaki yung chance na makahawa pa talaga.
In October last year, the NTF required all LGUs and private companies to use the unified Stay Safe app. But progress has been slow, to say the least. The app is only used by 15% of the population and less than half of the LGUs. The Department of Interior and Local Government hopes to register 50 million Filipinos on the app. but there's some resistance from LGUs. Quezon City, for example, insists on keeping its own system.
Nauna kaming mag-develop ng online contact system before pa nasabi ng IATF na they are endorsing stay safe. No? Sabi na yes, local government can do as long as it can be interoperable with stay safe. No? So,
If at all, the answer would be having a centralized database compatible with all the current apps. At least, that's the plan.
We can't fight this pandemic divided. So if we can't have a single contact tracing app, then we should at least have a unified database so different parts of the country could work together and heal as one. I'm Jacob Lazaro and we are One News.
The Department of Science and Technology is eyeing New Clark City for the location of local vaccine manufacturing facilities. In an interview with One News Now, DOST Undersecretary Rowena Cristina Guevara said the agency is building the Virology Institute of the Philippines in New Clark City. Guevara also said that they are considering a fill and finish facility for the local reproduction of COVID-19 vaccines.
A fill and finish facility is basically the end of the line for any vaccine product, wherein you have a bulk antigen, you're going to put it in vials, ampules, or injectables. And then you package it, and then it's ready for distribution.
Apple is eyeing to launch an Apple Watch model aimed at extreme sports athletes and hikers. Let's get more details in this report by Bloomberg Quick Take. And those are the top stories of the hour. Join us later at 12 noon as we continue to monitor the day's biggest stories. You can also catch One News on Signal Play app. Register for a free account now at www.signalplay.com and stream One News live anytime, anywhere. I'm Riza Diaz. Mask on, wash hands, and stay safe, Philippines. We are One News.